I'm here with Dr. Pascal of the Health Institute of North Carolina in Cary, North Carolina. Just wanted to briefly introduce him and just tell just really quickly about what his experience has been in and basically what he's been doing in his life up to this point. For the past 34 years, he's been in practice as a chiropractor. He really began as an athlete training for the Olympics, track and field, and got injured when he was training for the Olympic trials. So he shifted gears and went to chiropractic school and started then also treating the Olympic athletes. Pretty much since then, he's been going to the Olympics with the athletes, treating them in between the Olympics, and just doing a lot of sports injury work, as well as working with autoimmune patients and specializing as well in severe neurologic injuries and allergies. So he's had quite a lot of experience in all of those categories, and people come to him from all over looking for answers, and he is, for many, many people, is the key to their healing. So just want to welcome you today.
Thank you. Nice to be here, Lindley.
You know, you're known for having such a high success rate with your patients, and really being you're seeing a lot of improvement where, a lot of times they went to other doctors, some of the top doctors, and didn't improve at all. So I just wanted to ask you, what do you attribute that?
A lot of those neurologic patients that come to us, they were, traumatic brain injury, they're quadriplegic, paraplegic, they had failed surgery, they're left in, horrendous pain or paralysis. Or the patients that you mentioned with autoimmune, it could be thyroid or some other autoimmune condition, or even a sports injury from an athlete. And usually when I see these people, I'm the 5th, 10th, 30th, 50th, literally, doctor that they've seen. And most of those people get clinically significant improvement in my office. And I believe the main reason, well, I think there's a couple reasons. One is I have an internal confidence that I'll be able to figure out what's going on with them and help them. And that's driven by a passion to help. So I have that underlying foundation of wanting to help. And then that next level is believing that I will be able to find an answer, because I believe there is an answer. There's always an answer, and it just depends on that doctor's ability to figure that out. And then the third thing is figuring it out. And the biggest mistake I believe that most doctors make is they assume. The patient comes in and they say, "Hey doc, I have a thyroid problem and here's my blood test. I have antibodies eating my thyroid, so that's my problem." Well, yeah, that is a problem that you have. That doesn't mean that antibodies aren't causing the problem. Antibodies are a symptom of some other underlying thing that led to you getting antibodies that are now eating your thyroid, which then is labeled as an autoimmune disease. But there's a cause behind that. And many doctors and patients will get stuck in the label. And once you have a label, then you kind of pigeonhole yourself. And my viewpoint is, I'm not smart enough to know that for a fact. God is smart enough. I'm not smart enough. So I have to look at all the data. So I try to start from the beginning, do a very thorough history, get as much information as I can. That's the next mistake people make, is they like to get a history and an exam at the same time and a diagnosis. That's that's not what we're taught in school, and that's not how it works. You have to do one thing at a time. First, you gather the information. So you'll do the history. Then you gather more information by doing your exam on the patient. Maybe there's some extra tests, you get that information too. So then you take all that information, and the next step is you look at the information. You sit down and you look at it and you go, what's going on here? Then the next step is, from all of that information, you come up with a diagnosis of what you believe is going on with the patient. And the next step is coming up with a treatment plan. Most doctors want to do all of that all at the same time. And that, I believe, leads to their problem, because we get patients from the Mayo Clinic all the time, Johns Hopkins, UCLA, Stanford, and these patients have been, Duke, these patients have been looked at by some of the top immunologists, top neurosurgeons, top sports medicine orthopedists on the planet, and they're not getting better. And I believe it's because of that breakdown in that system that I just described.
Have you found that the allergies are an issue with some of these patients and they didn't realize it? Do some people, I know some people come to you with allergies, but how have you seen allergies plays into some of these serious cases and not so serious cases? What's your experience been with allergies?
Yeah, that's another good question. We call them allergies because, it goes back to that labeling thing. In the medical world, they want to label everything because then you can assign an expert, or you can give them a drug or a certain procedure. Oh, you're an allergy patient, so you get X care. Oh, you're a rotator cuff, torn shoulder patient, so you get Y care. But in allergies specifically, what allergies aren't like a thing, Allergies are symptoms. If you are around a cat and then you sneeze a zillion times and you have antibodies for a cat, now that's labeled, you have cat allergies. But what allergies actually are a problem with your immune system. So anyone that has allergies actually has a problem, a glitch in their immune system. And anyone that has any problem that isn't healing quickly, one of the factors usually is their immune system isn't working to the best of its ability. So many of these people, let's say someone that has a sports injury and has been there for 9 months, well, there may be some underlying, soft tissue or bone issues that are contributing to that. But at that point also, their immune system has probably become a factor as well. And that first level of immunologic dysfunction are what we call allergies or sensitivities. So most people that come in, for whatever reason they're coming in to see me, if it's been there for a while, we're going to do an allergy test, a sensitivity test, to see, okay, everyone's got a few sensitivities or allergies. And so if you have 2 or 3 things, big deal. But if you come in and you have an autoimmune issue with your thyroid and you have antibodies eating your thyroid, you probably have sensitivities and allergies to 80 or 100 different things. And everything that you're eating, almost everything you're eating, breathing, touching, is dinging on your immune system and helping to compromise your immune system. So you have someone with a compromised immune system that's autoimmune, and they're doing this constant thing to constantly impair their immune system. So yes, we call them allergies or sensitivities, but really it's quite foundational to most people's health.
So one of the things that really surprised me when I first met you was when you told me that allergies are not permanent. I always had in my mind, if you're allergic to something, you stay allergic to it your whole life. It's an allergy. It's like a diagnosis. But when you told me that there's a way to eliminate symptoms, to not be so sensitive to certain things, that like blew my mind. So tell me, like, I don't think there's that many people out there that know about this, that understand that there's a way to eliminate allergies. How does that work? And, how long does that take? And what's the impact of that in your patient's health?
Right. So many people have sensitivities or allergies. So we'll give a simple example. Someone that's allergic to cats. So they're totally fine. They eat whatever they want. They go wherever they want. They have no symptoms at all. They go into a house that has a cat and they sneeze a million times. That's a glitch in their immune system, right? I'm not allergic to cats, for example. I go into a house that has a bunch of cats in it. I breathe in some cat hair. My body goes, oh, cat hair, this doesn't belong here. Maybe sneeze one time, maybe send, a few white blood cells over, gobble up whatever's there, and no harm, no foul. That's a normal, appropriate immunologic reaction. Someone that is sensitive or allergic to cats, they breathe in that same animal dander, cat hair, and their body goes, oh my gosh, we're under attack. We're going to die, flood the sinuses, sneeze a million times, send 100,000 white blood cells. And their immune system is like having a psychotic reaction, an overreaction, an inappropriate reaction for that stimulus. So there are a number of doctors over the last 50 years that have developed various ways to help reset that immunologic response. And I studied under a lot of them. I've been in practice, this is my 34th year treating patients, but really kind of focusing on autoimmune and allergy patients for the last 20 years. And so I've taken all those seminars and all those books and all that clinical experience and mushed it together and, added one part of one technique and took out another part of another technique and just mushed it all together and kept testing my patients to see what the success rate was as I was treating them. And what I ended up with was my own best version, or as best as I could do for myself, of all those different techniques. So now I have my own, Pascal's holistic allergy and sensitivity elimination technique, my own phase technique. And for most people that have sensitivities or allergies, we can take them through the testing, take them through the treatment program, and then that person that's allergic to cats, most of those people can own a cat, or someone that's sensitive to seafood. Normally they, eat some shrimp, go into anaphylactic shock. Now they can eat seafood and not have a problem, or eat eggs and not break out into hives, or whatever their particular allergen is. And the difference between people in alternative medicine that are doing these allergy elimination techniques like I am versus more of the medical Western medicine viewpoint is, in Western medicine, those MDs can only do what they're taught. And if they haven't done any extra education past medical school, then they're in that little box. And that little box says, if you have allergies, the first thing to do is stay away from what you're allergic to. Hey, if you're allergic to cats, don't be around a cat. No harm, no foul. But, if you're allergic to pollen and you live in North Carolina, you can't avoid pollen. You have to move to Arizona, right? That's not very practical for people. So the next step, if avoidance isn't practical, are drugs. And there are a ton of drugs. And the purpose of drugs do not change your immune system. Drugs address, for the most part, address your symptoms. So if your allergy symptom is a runny nose, there's a drug that'll stop your nose from running. If your symptom is a rash, there are lots of drugs that will minimize that rash or handle the rash once you get it. If drugs aren't working, then the next step are allergy shots. And according to the American Medical Association, the typical allergy shot program is 5 to 7 years long. My program for a typical allergy patient is 3 or 4 months long. Again, the AMA says that those people at the end of 5 to 7 years, they start out going 2 or 3 times a week, and they slowly dwindle down over that time. Their success rate, according to the AMA, is 30% after a half a decade of their life. My clinical experience is that our patients report to us an over 95% improvement in their symptoms. And that's in 3 to 4 months. So that's not really a fair competition. When patients come to us and say, hey, I'm thinking about doing 7 years of allergy shots, or with a 30% success rate, or coming to you for 3 or 4 months, which should I do? So we see a lot of allergy patients.
So that's really amazing. And I really liked how you said drugs don't change your immune system. We know, it's basic, but the fact that we can change our immune systems to make them stronger, so we're not so sensitive to things, and there no longer exist those glitches that cause the allergies, that's healing.
Yes.
And it just blows my mind that this is not common knowledge, and that most people go to a doctor to fix their problem, when in reality, it's actually not fixing their problem.
Right. It's handling their symptoms. And the reason why most people go to MDs is because of marketing. The pharmaceutical industry, see, MDs don't have to worry about advertising for themselves, because they have the pharmaceutical industry that is spending more than $1 billion a month in advertising. My own personal advertising budget for my office is slightly lower than that, or maybe significantly lower than that. You could take every alternative healthcare professional that's ever existed from the beginning of alternative medicine, add up every penny that they spent in marketing, and it won't equal a week of what the pharmaceutical company spends just in a week, let alone what they continue to spend year after year, decade after decade after decade after decade. So when, I hear that all the time, well, how come I haven't heard about this? Well, that's why. Money. That's the whole reason why we hear about everything, is money, money, money.
And isn't it amazing how people believe what they see, right? So they see all the ads, they see, the media, they see what they're getting from society, from all this advertising. They're believing that. They believe that they believe in science, right?
Yeah.
That's their thing, when in reality, it's not. We're not getting all the other science, right, that shows, how we can really heal. It's, we're being lied to.
Unfortunately, pharmaceutical companies are for-profit businesses. For profit.
Let's talk about, the role of stress in disease, and your experience with seeing that, and how you recommend that your patients get emotional healing support. You recommend a lot of your patients to me, and I kind of work with you in helping them heal by just addressing the emotional side. So why do you recommend that? Not all doctors do. And why, what's the benefit that you see in looking at their emotional wellness?
Right. So you mentioned stress, and bodies have that inborn ability to heal themselves. So then why does anyone ever get sick or get a disease process? Is because there's some breakdown in that. And that attack to our body is an attack usually of stress. So, and when I say stress, most people immediately think mental stress, but there's actually 3 types of stress. There's the mental emotional stress, there's physical stress, and there's chemical stress. And our brain and immune system cannot differentiate between the 3. All it knows is we have stress, and then it mounts an attack to that stress. And if it's a one-time stress, like you're driving down the street and all of a sudden a kid runs out in front of your car, oh my gosh, you slam on the brakes, you do, your red alert goes up, you're under high stress because there's this thing that just happened, and your body's going to make all these chemical changes to address that. That's a one-time thing. But if you have a very stressful job and you're going to work all the time and you're not getting sleep and you're eating poorly and you're, work, trying to handle whatever it is with your job, that's a long-term stress. That's a stress that goes day after day after day after day. Well, if that initial stress reaction occurs in the body to handle that physical, chemical, emotional stress, and then the next day it does it, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day. But as it keeps having the body keep mounting a stress reaction, something breaks down. What breaks down? Whatever the weakest link is. For one person, it's their adrenals. For someone else, it's their digestive tract. 70% of our immune system's in our small intestine, right? So if you get the small intestine breaking down, your small intestine not only does it have 70% of our immune system and be responsible for absorbing all of our nutrients that all our cells need, it also makes our neurotransmitters. So, or all the parts of the neurotransmitters are primarily made in the small intestine, shipped in the blood, up to the brain, put together in the brain, and now neurotransmitters, those are chemicals that are carrying all the signals for your brain to function. Well, if you have long-term GI issues, you're going to end up with neurotransmitter issues. If you end up with neurotransmitter issues, you're going to end up with emotional issues. And whatever stresses you have are going to become even worse, and you're not going to have the ability to appropriately address that because you don't have the chemicals to do the job. So when patients come to me, yes, they have a physical issue, and I'm the physical doctor. I address the physical part of their condition, but almost every patient that has a long-term issue will have some significant mental, emotional component to that's impairing their ability to heal. So why would I only address 60, 70, 80% of their condition? That's not why people hop on a plane and come to me from Melbourne or Moscow or Miami. They come to me because I have a high success rate. I have a high success rate because I play every card that I can. And so that a big part of that, quite often, is that mental emotional part, not in my wheelhouse. So I can either ignore it or I can find someone that's an expert in that. And that's why, as you know, I work with you, why I send many of my patients to you, because I do my part and then I send my patients to you to do your part. And the great thing about the work that you do, one of the great things is that you work remotely. So you have patients in Europe, you have patients in California, you have patients in Florida, you have patients all over the place, and you can give them just as excellent care or service if they're sitting in front of you on the other, or if they're on the other side of the planet because of the nature of your work. So
Yeah, that is amazing. That's amazing. So thank you, for sharing all of this. And I want to ask you, just before we go, have you found that there is a level of resistance in people when you mention that they might need some emotional support? And do most people not even realize that, or do they know they need it? Or, what's your experience with that?
yeah, so that's a lot of questions in there. But yeah, quite often people have a stigma. If someone walks with a limp and you go, dude, why are you walking with a limp? They go, oh, I sprained my ankle. Oh, okay. No stigma there. The guy sprained their ankle. But if you say something to someone and they go, They just have a blank stare on their face, and then they wait 45 seconds, and then they finally give you an answer, because they have significant brain fog. All of a sudden you go, like, is there some mental problem with you? We have the stigma when the mind or the emotions are involved, just like they go, oh, are your hormones off today, Lindley? Because the way you're acting, so
Right.
there's this,
Good defense.
well, it's this cultural judgmental thing that there are lots of jokes about it. There are TV shows, there's this and that. And so we have this preconceived. The second you start talking about emotions or the mind, that, oh, that's some weird problem, as opposed to a sprained ankle limp isn't a weird problem. So a physical injury is okay, but a mental injury isn't. And so, and not everyone thinks that way, but there's, a fair amount that do. So when I talk to my patients, I don't know where they are on that. So just like if I have to give bad news about some physical thing, like, ooh, wow, we just got your labs back and, this isn't a good thing. I go, hey, I think that one of the components here is, can be a mental emotional issue. What do you think? Because I want to see what they think. And they, quite often they go, oh yeah, I agree with that. Or some go, oh wow, I didn't even know that. And they go, yeah, well, that can happen. That happens, and that's plays a big impact, can play a major role. And then my next question is, do you have someone that helps support you emotionally or mentally? You come to me to address the physical. Are you seeing someone else to address the mental? Lots of people are. So then I go, hey, that's great. So now you've built this team. Great. But there are also many people that haven't. They haven't, for whatever reasons. There's the stigma, or they hadn't thought about it, or they didn't know where to find that resource. So then with my patients, once I find that they need that help, and they not receiving it, then I'll send them to you. I say, okay, well, I work with this person. They like to start with a consultation, just like I start with a consultation. See, not everyone's the right fit. There are lots of patients that call me, they want to come see me, and I say, I'm not the right doctor for you. I'm referring patients, 3 or 4 a week call our clinic, and we go, I'm not the right doctor for you. Like, I'm really good at what I do, but you have a thing that I'm not the best fit. So let's find the best fit for you. So, when I send a patient or a client to you, then you do your consultation with them. You find out if you're the right fit, and then you take it from there in that mental, emotional way, in the same way that I take the patient in the physical way.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it's so amazing to look at, the fact that, just coming full circle here, allergies and some of these issues, there's a breakdown in the immune system. The body's not working properly. And a lot of times what I found in my work with my clients is that happens when there's some trauma that happens early on, or some kind of big stressor. And when it never gets processed, that glitch right in the system, that emotion is trapped in that stress, that it's stressing the body. So these allergies and a lot of these autoimmune issues begin with, it could be trauma, it could be, just very stressful life. And when a lot of times people are not validated or not really fully seen, and they've been told that maybe they're just not good enough. They can't handle things, or, this isn't normal. You're just not doing a good job of handling life. And so they don't even know that there is an actual issue, that they need to look at their stress, and there's something they can do about it.
Sure.
So it's really important to kind of do that work, which I love.
Yeah, and it's the same thing with why did that person get an autoimmune condition? You know, why is that person taking so long to heal when other people heal up from their sprained ankle very quickly or recover from their surgery quickly, or, you know, only have minimal allergies instead of some autoimmune disease, and quite often they're predisposed to it, right? What does
Mhm.
predisposed mean? They're already in a weakened immunologic state. Well, why are they in a weakened immunologic state? Quite often, early things that have happened in their childhood or teens or you know, early adulthood have, you know, stressed out them in a mental emotional way. And now that constant mental emotional stress
Mhm.
leads to a physical weakness in the body, and then an inability to heal physically, when the primary thing, right? 'Cause that goes back to the very beginning of our conversation of why am I able to help people when so many aren't? We're finding that primary underlying cause and not necessarily the symptom of, wow, this hamstring, it keeps getting hurt, it keeps getting hurt, it keeps getting hurt. Why is that? Well, could be physical, but also quite
Mhm.
often it can be some mental emotional issue. If you don't address it, then that problem's always going to recur.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I feel like it's very important to share this with others. So thank you for
Yeah, you're
taking the
very
time.
welcome.